Hello.
Yes, sir.
Can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So good. Uh, so mm, let's first clear up some official issues. First of all, I think you guys know that you guys will be selected the date of your exam, right? It is on the 1st of January. Uh, so that one will be up, as far as I understand, will be a 2.5 hour exam, okay, in which you have to download the uh, question, solve it, and send it off. Okay, so now since it is just a 2.5 hour exam, I would not insist you guys to do I will not insist you to kind of uh, mm, write up your solutions in Word or LaTeX or any such things. Instead, you can upload, write it up in your hand in a properly neat and clear sheet of paper, okay, and upload the photos, okay. Here, of course, I will tell you again later on also, but just to be very clear, okay, this is something that I would really request you guys, okay. Please solve every problem in a new paper, okay. Please solve every problem in a new paper. On top of the paper, clearly and boldly write the problem number, okay, because it is online, meaning I will have to look at the downloaded versions of it and all. It can be very confusing, okay. If the scan doesn't come out very clearly or something, it will be a real mess. So at least for my course, I really insist that you write every question separately on a paper. So in no paper should have more than one question basically solved. Okay. If there are parts of them, so like I have 3A, 3B, and 3C, you can write 3A, 3B, 3C as a single thing. Okay. But they should be different from this say, problem 4 or different from problem 2. Okay. That is first thing. Every paper should have on bold properly on top the problem number. Okay. The other thing that you have to do is that you have to write very clearly. Okay. I will not try to make it very hard. The problems will not be very hard. The problems will be, if you are following the class, uh, so trying to able to solve the assignments, going over the problem sets and so on, I think you will be very easily. It will be very easy to get, say, 80, 90% or something like that in this course. No, not a big deal at all. Okay, and I have a tendency of not making hard papers. I usually make very easy papers. But here again, since you will be taking your photos or taking your scan and sending it to us, again, I please insist that you write it in the clearest possible way, in a big letters, clearly, in neat handwriting. Okay. If it is not in neat handwriting, it's scribbled in some way which is hard to understand for me in by looking at the scan. I don't think I will have the energy or the effort. I will make the effort to go and reach out to you saying that, oh, can you please explain me what you have done? I don't think I will do that. If you cannot explain it to you, explain it clearly to me in a clear handwriting. If I cannot understand it because of your handwriting issue, you lose marks. Nothing much can be done over there. Okay. I'm not a stickler of time. I don't know exactly how the Dean's office will finally conduct it, but it is a 3 hour exam. Possibly to be the problem will be paper will be for 2.5 hours, and you will have 45 minutes to submit your paper and all. Even if you cross the time and take 1 hour extra or something like that, I will not be offended at all. You can take your time. I don't believe in rushing people in time constraint. But you should give me neat and clear everything. The other thing that is there is that try to keep your arguments also as crisp as possible. If you are giving an algorithm, write that algorithm in stepwise. Okay? Doesn't matter how. You can write a pseudocode, you can write step 1, do this, step 2, do this. Okay? But neatly write it up and the algorithm, mark it out, demarcate it out. See, this is the start of the algorithm, this is the end of the algorithm. This is what is getting in, this is what is outputting. And then the rest of it, you'll, okay, so here is the algorithm. Now I need to give you the proof of correctness. So proof of correctness. And write it up clearly and say what you want to prove and write it. Then time complexity, specifically write it and then do that. Okay? So please do it as clearly as possible. Now I surely will remind you guys again, sometime again next week or something like that. Also it will be there written up in the question paper, but I don't know whether you will be reading it or not. But I think the thing that is new to you guys possibly is that you have to write every question separately in a paper. Okay, on top you should write the problem number. See, this is, I mean, I will be only be seeing the scanned copy or photos of it. Okay, I mean, I think this is something that you can follow in other courses also, but I don't know. I cannot say what the other courses teachers would do or not do. But for me, I can say that I will be, if you give me something written up in a scribbled way, you are going to lose marks. If I don't understand it, you lose marks. Okay. Time will not be a constraint. If you say that, oh, see, sir, I have found out the solution, but I have not yet written it up, and I need another 15 minutes to write it up, I will happily say, okay, fine, go and write it up. Okay. Of course, there are other things that will be placed in the course regarding how to do invigilation. Honestly speaking, I don't understand this whole process what's going on. I am supposed to invigilate by something, by having your videos on and something like that and all those things. I don't know how much it will be feasible actually. Okay, I rather would put a lot more faith on your guys not cheating. Okay, not discussing with yourselves, not taking immediate help from others, and still submitting it. Of course, see, you guys will have internet, you will have the books and all, and I know some people will be accessing the book, accessing the internet, and so on and so forth. That I think you are allowed to do. Okay, it will be good if you don't do it, but even if you do it, it will not be called as a cheating. We will set up questions so that chances of you finding out a solution in the internet or in the book immediately is pretty low. Okay. And also, I mean, if you guys have ever done an open book kind of stuff, unless you know what you are looking for, unless you know something, it is impossible to make use of open book. Even if the 2.5 hours is extended to 5.5 hours, even then you will not be able to make a massive help. So please study properly. And the only thing I can request you guys is that don't cheat. And you don't discuss with yourself in the class. And more importantly, don't take help of someone else. Okay. I mean, don't take a senior or someone and say, oh, can you just please solve the question for me and I will just write it up. I don't think we have any mechanism to stop you from doing it, but that is like I mean, if at all I find out something like that, and I don't know how I'll do it, but if I find it out, then it will be harsh. Okay. The paper will be easy if all you have to do is kind of follow the course, whatever is being done till now, and that should be good enough. Yeah, I know that only in general only half of the class attends this thing. I don't know how many people watches the videos later on, all those things I don't know. But if you are one of those people who is following what is being done in the class, it should be almost a cakewalk for you. Okay, solve the questions, solve the assignments, uh, solve the problem sets, and so on. Okay. The another thing is that,
Excuse me, sir.
yeah, tell me. Yeah.
Sir, can you please grade our assignments so that we know how we will be graded?
Yes, yes, I will do that. I mean, I have done that somewhat fit, but I will. Yeah, I mean, I'm relaxed in that thing. I agree. I will try to do it as soon as, hopefully, by this weekend or something. I will do that. Also, the other thing that is there is that, okay. So we have only few more classes left. Technically, we have only 5 classes left. Okay, and so today we'll be doing a very interesting, different uh, thing. Okay, something that you have not seen till now, and I hope that you really enjoy that stuff. It is slightly different from algorithms. I mean, the kind of algorithm that you have seen till now. Okay, so we will. Sorry.
I have a question about the exam.
Yeah. Tell me.
Can I do it in Word or Notepad if I want to?
You can, of course.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. If you are comfortable in typing, go for it. That will be
I think
perfect.
my typing is faster than writing.
Sure. That's perfect. In fact, typing is something I personally will prefer, because that is like, there is no question of scribbles and no question of not recognizing the handwriting and scanning and all this kind of stuff, right? So you can, that will be something that I will prefer also. If somebody can scribe and write it up in Word or Notepad or whatever. Okay. Yeah. So so we will be basically doing something today and on Thursday. Okay. On Friday, on Saturday, I will ask the TA to take a kind of a problem set question kind of class, discussing problems kind of class. Now, I know that you guys had asked me at some point of time this and some problems like 6.7 and something like that we had skipped during this time. Those kind of stuff will be, you guys can, the TS can try to explain you guys. Any question that you want to ask, you can explain you, okay? The next week, okay, we'll have 2 classes again, okay? But it will be completely up to you guys how we want to do it. If you want to know something more about whatever has been done, I will feel free to say more about it. If you want to discuss some more problems, either with me or the TS, you can also do that. Okay, so it can be purely a kind of a problem solving session kind of stuff like that you can have. Okay, so basically you have 2 more proper classes left today and on the Thursday. After that, it can be mostly be problem solving session, and if we have time, we can discuss some problems or some areas of research, some not research, areas of algorithms, some advanced areas, and they will be, let's say, not be there in the course. It will be more like to educate you guys about what is there beyond what you have done now. Okay, so there you can almost forget. You don't have to really worry about should I have to study that or not. So whatever will be done today and Thursday, we will do it. The another thing that I skipped in the middle was the stuff about the Fourier transform, first Fourier transform. Again, that will not be there in the course, but I will be uploading a video on that. Okay, that will not be there as a part of the in the exams and all. But for whoever is interested, feel free to go over it, see it. Hopefully, you will like it, and you will take it from there. Okay. Okay, good.
The syllabus for the exam is whatever we cover till Thursday.
Till Thursday. Okay, fine. Good. So any questions about this kind of logistics? Oh, by the way, yeah. So there is one assignment that is due on Saturday, on Monday, right? But I will be giving another assignment on Monday or on Sunday or something like that. Okay, which will be due again in a week's time or something like that, and that will be kind of a, you can think of it as an assignment of everything that you have done, mixture of that. Okay, maybe it's again 6-7 problems. So that will be the sixth assignment, and that you have to do later on. See, as I told you, it will be kind of 50 marks is there for the assignment, which means that 10 marks in each question, in each quiz kind of stuff. So basically, we will be taking the best 5 out of the 6. Okay, so so that will be due again in 1 week's time, and the main idea is that 1 week or 10 days time is that, you will also be in touch with whatever you will not forget during your reading period. Okay, and during the reading period that you will have, I think you have 1 week break or 10 days break or something. Again, if you guys want to do some more problem solving or something, discuss some problems or some ideas that you have not understood properly, can you repeat or something, feel free. We will be there to help you guys. Okay, we can have some more things. Okay, so is this thing fine, clear?
So if possible, can you upload the next assignment a bit earlier while keeping the deadline same? Because like I and some of my friends are already done with the current assignment.
Okay, I will try to upload our next assignment on, say, Thursday.
But like while keeping the deadline same, else my classmates are gonna kill me.
Sure, sir. That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I will try to do that. Okay. Okay, so any questions other about this kind of this ancient logistic stuff and all? Okay, I guess you will get to know more about this whole procedure in the next week or 2 weeks. I also don't know all of it because Team Service has not completely informed us about various things. Like, how will the question be made available to you guys? Will that be emailed to you guys, or will it be uploaded in the Google Classroom? Which Google Classroom will it be uploaded in? I have no idea of any of this. Okay? Hopefully, those details will be coming shortly. Yeah, sorry.
In third question of last problem set.
Yeah. Okay. So this was something I was going to ask. Okay, so let me just ask you a poll. But I think these polls are pretty useless right now because, can someone tell me why are the other half of your class not coming? Are they finding it very easy, or are they finding the course very boring, or are they finding the course very hard?
No, sir,
Or
it's not like half of the class are. Many people are facing network issues. I myself faced very bad conditions while connecting to the class today. It might be that they are also facing that.
okay, that is possible. That is very much possible. So in that case, how are they attending, and they are kind of listening to the videos later on or something?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. People are watching the YouTube videos.
Okay, fine. Then I have nothing much to say. Yeah. Uh,
A few people I don't know, but most of the people who are not attending are mainly because of this reason that the net is very bad in some places right now.
okay. That can certainly be an issue, but okay. So in that case, let me just quickly launch this thing about how many people have done the last problem set, right? So I had asked some problem sets to be done. Just to see how much. Okay. So I can see 15 of you have kind of told something, so I can understand. So most of you have tried some of it, and many of you have tried almost all of it, but could not solve all of this stuff. So it's okay. Try and get some idea. So, okay. So now somebody was saying something about the last assigned problem set, right?
Yes, sir. Third problem.
Third problem in the problem set, right? Just 1 second. So what is that? Minimum spanning tree in a graph. Good, good, good.
Sir, my matrix is taking exponential space for this.
Your which one? This the constant number of constant is becoming exponential.
Sir, the matrix AX is less than equal to B that we have.
Yeah, so that is constant, right? Yeah. So you're saying that is a exponential size structures, right? Yeah. Good. Okay. So you are right. So there is an exponential type thing. I mean, I will come to that actually pretty soon. But yeah. So there is a polynomial range reduction. Let's say there is a polynomial size. Okay. But what about the rest of it? Have you managed to solve them or something? Some of them?
Yes, sir. I solved all others.
All others? What about the others? Did you find any particular problem other than the matching thing? Sorry, other than spanning tree thing? Any of them particularly hard or something?
I also solved all of them except problem 3.
Except problem 3? Okay.
And like 2 of the problems were same.
2 of the also same?
The clique problem and the independent set.
They are not same. I mean, they are same if you change.
Clique is same as maximum independent set in
the complement. Yeah.
Yeah, complement.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So the reason I really wanted you guys to ask this question, I really wanted you to guys do this stuff. Let me share the screen. Do you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what did we have? We have a set of problems, right? Some problems. P1, P2, kind of some same set of problems that was given to you guys. And we had ILP, the other end. And what you did was that you kind of told that, oh, give me, if I have given you the problem 1, I can reduce it to ILP problem. What does it mean? Okay, except for the spanning tree problem, which I will come to that possibly later. Okay, but rest of them, you had been given a problem, right, which has an input of size something. Okay, I don't know what. Let me call this input to be capital N. So this is the input size. Okay, this input size can, as we discussed, they can be different, right? So this is, if the P1 is a graph, then this can be N plus N, or N, or just, yeah, N plus N is the input size. If it's a weighted graph, it can be something else. If it's a knapsack, it can be something else. Okay, if it's a number theory problem, it can be something else, and so on and so forth, right? And you reduced it to ILP. Okay. So what does it mean? It means that if I now can come up with a good algorithm for ILP, I can solve P1. Right? Or if I can solve, you did the same thing for, say, the vertex cover problem, right?
Yes.
Or you did the same thing for the clique problem. It means that, okay, give me the graph, tell me what I have to do. Oh, I have to find out the clique. Okay, now I go into this, I formulate it in the ILP format. And all I need to do, okay, forget I have to find out a clique or not, but I will be able to know the actual value of the maximum clique, right? And that one I can solve using the ILP problem. So all I need is this ILP problem solution, a good problem, algorithm, efficient algorithm for solving ILP. And if I can do it, I can solve all of them. Right? So in some sense, this is the hard problem. We can call this one as the hard problem. Why? Because this is the problem that I need to solve. If I can solve this problem, all the problems will be solved. Right? Similarly, we can, but at the same time, you can see that there might be some problems like, what are the other problems that was given? Oh, finding a matching, right? So this is the matching problem. Say, we don't know an ILP status, good solution for ILP, but we know how to find a optimum matching, right? So this is hard. Doesn't mean that this is cannot be solved. So in some sense, we can say that the P1 is a easier problem than ILP, right? Similarly, you can write P2 is an easier problem for ILP. Or let me, if I not write P1, P2, I will write it in terms of matching. The easier problem than ILP. Vertex cover is an easier problem than ILP. Click is an easier problem than ILP. And so on. Okay. Now, what does an easier problem mean? I'm just repeating it again, some obvious statement. That yeah, if I can solve ILP, I am done. But it might be that I don't have a good solution for ILP, but still I can find out a efficient algorithm for matching. I don't have an efficient algorithm for ILP, but I still have a efficient algorithm for vertex cover. It might be. Okay, but you can see that this problem now becomes a kind of centrally hard problem. Okay, I will formally define all of these concepts very soon. Fine. Okay, so to go further, any further, okay, I need to really discuss. I have to discuss certain conceptual stuff. Okay, what is the problem? Now, if you guys are coming from a bit of a mathematical bent of mind, you would be now, at some point of time, might have asked, how do you define mathematically a problem? What is the problem? So, usually how it is told is that you have been given an input, right? So, let's think of 0, 1, okay? Let's live with 0, 1. So, you have been given an input, okay? The input is nothing but a string of 0 and 1, right? So, input is some 0, 1 to the n. Now, this input, so this is the encoding of the input. So, the input is a 0, 1 to the n. Think of this input is the basically nothing but the adjacency matrix of the graph. Okay, not given in a matrix form, but kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like you kind of flatten out the matrix into a straight line, right? I mean, row 1, then row 2, then row 3, then row 4, then row 5, still row n, kind of stuff like that, right? And that's the input. Okay. So input graph is the input. And what is it that we want to check? Say, I want to check, okay, if the input satisfies or has a property, satisfies some property. For example, I want to check, does the graph, and the graph is not given as the graph is given as the input, okay? Remember that. Does the graph, or I can think of the, instead of the graph, I can write it as the input, okay? has a vertex cover of size more than 100? This can be a question. Okay, so it has been given an input, and I'm hoping to say that, oh, see, there is an input. You should think of this input as a graph, and in that case, that graph, does that graph have a vertex cover of size greater than or equal to 100? This is the question that I want to solve. So what does this mean? What does this mean? Okay, so what does this mean? So let's look at all the possible graphs. Okay, let's look at all the possible 0, 1 to the n string such that the graph represented by, no, sorry, I don't mean this. All the a in 0, 1 to the n, all the guys represented by a has a vertex cover of size bigger than or equal to 100. So consider this set. Does this set make sense? Logically, does this make sense? Yeah, so these are all the set of graphs, all this set of strings that represents a graph and has more than equal to 100. Okay, what happens if the input string does not represent a graph? Then that string is not in this set. So this is called a problem P. Problem P, therefore, is nothing but whatever we have been thinking for now, or is basically a subset of 0, 1 to the star. Okay, so this again, this n is kind of not important, right? I can talk about graphs of any number of vertices. Who cares? I mean, I did say here in this question, I didn't say what the graph size is. And does a graph have a vertex cover size greater than or equal to 100? Right? So a property, therefore, okay, so I can replace this one as, I don't want n over here. There's no n. Okay, this is star. Okay. Right? I can even do something more, else other stuff also, but you can understand what this means, right? That a problem is nothing but a subset of 0, 1 star. And now what is our question? What is our question? Question is that given us an input A, which is a part of 0, 1 to the star, check if A is in P. So this is the problem that we have been doing, right? Right? Clear? Now, some of you might be asking that, oh, how does this kind of question ask? I mean, how do things like find the minimum spanning tree, how does this fall here? Or find the maximum vertex cover, how does it fall here? Okay? Okay, it doesn't fall. Okay, there are two kind of questions that comes up. There is one question called the optimization problem. Okay, what is the optimization problem? Meaning you want to optimize something. Optimize something. Like for example, given a graph, what is the size of maximum of what is the maximum size of vertex cover? What is the maximum size of vertex cover? This is an optimization question. Correct? But there is also something called a decision question. Decision problem is called. Okay. In which there is a yes, no answer. Yes, no answer. And the example is what you just note. Given a graph, does the given a graph, sorry, is there a vertex cover of size bigger than say 0.5 n, or so bigger than say n by 100? Given a graph, sorry, on n vertices, right? Correct. So there are these two kind of questions. And now this is the problem, is that if I have a good decision problem, okay, first of all, if I get an optimization problem, I can always get a decision problem, right? Optimization problems are easier than decision problems. Do you guys see that? Because if you can find the optimum value, then this decision problem, you can solve it. Okay, okay, given a graph, I want to find out what is the maximum size. If the maximum size of the vertex cover is more than n by 100, I will say, oh yes, it is true. If it is not, I will say no. So optimization problems are always easier than decision problems. But the opposite is also kind of similar.
But it depends on the particular decision problem.
Yeah, so this is the decision problem of the optimization thing. So, I mean, I'm a bit vague in various things. So, for every optimization problem, there is a decision problem it can be done easily. Okay, so basically, if you are given an optimization problem and the corresponding decision problem is the optimum value more than a threshold? This is the decision problem. Okay, so is the optimum value more than a particular threshold? Okay, this is basically the decision version of this optimization problem. Okay, and okay, so it means that if I have an algorithm for the optimization problem, I can also have an algorithm for the decision problem without any problem. What about the opposite? Say somebody comes up and gives me a decision problem and says that, okay, here I have a decision problem. Here's the algorithm for the decision problem. Can you use this algorithm and produce a optimization algorithm? Produce an algorithm for the optimization problem?
We'll need a group of decision problem.
Do we need that? Think of it. Yes, we have to apply the decision problem with different parameters. That is true.
So can you repeat the question?
So say here, right? So I have given you a particular algorithm that if you feed it a graph G, okay, so here is my problem, my thing. I have given you an algorithm A, you give me a graph G and a threshold T, and I will answer yes if G has a vertex cover bigger than T and no otherwise. Okay, so this is given. Okay, this is this is something that I have given you, say. Okay, this is an algorithm that I have given you, such an algorithm. Now, what I want is an algorithm. So let's call this one opt A. What it will do? It will just take G and it should output the size of the maximum vertex cover. Can you use this A to produce a opt of A? Is this problem clear? Should I repeat it? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Is this problem clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you think about something?
So we need to find the minimum is such that the answer is no, or the maximum is such that the answer is yes.
Yeah, right. Or minimum t rather, right?
Yeah.
You want to find the minimum t such that t the answer is yes and t minus 1 the answer is no. Or something like that, right? So t the max answer is yes, t plus 1 answer is no. How will you do that?
Probably a binary search.
Right. A binary search will do it. Right? Basically, what I will do is first is that I will tell, oh, okay, good. So what I will do is that let me ask you A with G and say n over 2. It will say answer yes or no. If it says answer no, what does it mean? That it does not have a vertex cover size bigger than n over 2. Fine. Next question that I do is A with the same G and n over 4. Say the answer is yes. Okay. Then what does it? What do I know? Ah, okay, fine, good. So that means there exists a vertex of a size bigger than n over 4. So in this span, there is no vertex cover at n over 2. So this side is not there. So this side is not possible. And at n over 4, the optimum value must be inside this range. So I can forget this part. So now I will take a middle level again. Okay. And I keep on doing it. Right? So I will do it with say 3n over 4 and something like that. No, that's not a good idea. Whatever, n over 2, something, 3 by 8 or something. What is the middle part here? This 3n by 8 or something, right? 3n by 8 and I get some answer. So I can keep on doing it, right? So how many times can I need to do it? So using a log of the optimal number of times, log of the optimal value number of times, we can get,
Sir,
yeah,
sir, in this case, we are minimizing something.
yeah. What about if you maximize it?
Okay, okay.
You go the opposite direction, right? You start from same thing, binary search, right? Doesn't matter. Minimization and maximization doesn't matter. So
No,
think
I
about
was
it.
saying that in this problem, it will be reversed. I mean, if there is no such thing in
Yeah,
n by 2, then it is bigger than
exactly.
n by 2.
Exactly. The decision problem, this problem will be reversed. Right? This problem, it will not be less than, but it will be less than. Yes. If you do a maximization, minimization problem. Right. So yeah, so I mean, I am thinking of everything, if all possible things as a maximization problem. But if you have the minimization problem, you can do all of the same thing, except everything gets reversed. Right? So the optimization problem and the decision problem is only off by a logarithmic factor. It's only off by a logarithmic factor, right? I repeat it a few times. So I am only interested. So I can say that, okay, let me just consider ourselves as just talking about decision problems. Okay. So from now on, whenever we talk about a problem, by default, we'll think of it as a decision problem. Okay. And this is what is the definition of a problem. Okay. I mean, I want to stop here a bit to see whether you guys have understood. So we have this optimization problem and the decision problems. They are basically same, off by a small factor, log of the size of the optimum. Okay. And now, if we just talk about the decision problems, a decision problem is nothing but a subset of the 0, 1 star And the question is therefore only of the form of, it's a yes no question, right? It is something like this. So it is only the fact that given an input, is that input inside the set P or not? So maybe I should not use this word P, okay? Maybe I should use something else. You'll see the reason for it. Let me call this one Q. Say. Okay. Is this clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Clear? Good. So first of all, let me define you the first class. So throughout this whole course, we have been talking about polynomial time, polytime and so on and all, right? So let me define you the first class of algorithms, okay? This is the problem called P. So P is the set of all questions, not Q, set of all problems. So all problems, I can just write it in terms this way, right? Such that, okay, given an x in 0, 1 to the n, okay, some parameter n, there exists an algorithm to check if x is in Q and the time complexity is polynomial in n, some polynomial in n. Is this problem, is this definition acceptable?
Is Q, like Q is subset of all finite length sequences of 0 and 1?
Yes, Q is set of all problems. So I will think of a problem as this one, right? So any problem is this.
Okay, but for a particular problem, the length is fixed.
No. For the particular problem, right? Problem length is not fixed. But a particular problem, and this is the input. If the input size is n, then the polynomial is this. So think of this Q to be equals to the set of all graphs with vertex cover bigger than equal to 100. Or bigger than equal to, maybe let's say bigger than equal to n by 100. Sorry. On the graphs, I will not write n here. Yeah, v by 100. Okay, n doesn't matter here. Okay, so this is a general graph. Okay, or maybe if you want to do it a bit more differently, let me say it this way: set of all graphs with a perfect matching. Okay, happy? Set of all graphs with perfect matching. Now the input.
Perfect matching is.
Oh, so what is the perfect matching? So I told you a matching, right?
Yes.
A perfect matching is a matching when every vertex is a part of a matching edge.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so every vertex has been matched. Okay, this is, I mean, this maybe you have seen it in the Hall's theorem definition or something.
So like we are defining a graph with a Boolean vector.
A graph is nothing but adjacency matrix, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? And the adjacency matrix, I have this rows, row 1, row 2 till some row, I don't know, n, right? And this is also, these columns are there. So what happens if I just stack them up one after another? I get a string of size n square, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
a graph is nothing but a string.
Yes.
Not every string is a graph. Not every string is a graph, but a graph is a string,
Okay, sir.
right? A graph is a string, right? And my Q is the set of all strings or graphs, whatever you want to call it, right? With a perfect matching. Meaning, so all these strings such that the corresponding graph has a perfect matching. Fine.
Yes.
And is Q inside P? Q is inside P if the P is a set of subsets. Okay. P is a collection. P is a collection of problems. Okay. So a problem is a collection of strings. A problem is a collection of strings or set of strings. P is a set of problems. Okay. Now, is Q in P? So Q is in P if when I give you a string of length n, whatever that n is, I am not fixing n. N is just a parameter. Okay. Or if you want, I don't even have to give n. Forget n. If I give you for a x, okay, there exists an algorithm. So x in 0, 1 to the star. There exists an algorithm to check if x is in Q or not in size polynomial in the size of x. Okay. So note that remember that this whatever algorithm that you have done, they don't take n as a input, right? An algorithm that outputs you a spanning tree, minimum spanning tree, doesn't look for an n. It says, oh, give me a graph, I will output you a minimum spanning tree. What is the time complexity? Time complexity is, say, polynomial or linear in the input size. We always say the word input size. Input size turns out to be n or n plus m or something like that. But it is this. If I give you a graph of a bigger size, then you will take some more time, but it will still be linear in the input size. Okay. So informally, so this is an informal you can think of. P is the set of all problems, maybe I should write decision problems that can be solved, or no, that can be solved is not right. That has a polytime algorithm. So this is the P. P for polynomial. Okay. So we have the set of all problems in the world. Okay. And P is the set of all problems that has a polynomial time algorithm. Is this clear? Should I discuss more on this?
Sir, is there any reason to specify decision problems there?
Yeah, so let's leave with decision problems. We don't, I mean, optimization problems also we can define it accordingly, but there is a reason I will tell you. I mean, you see it soon after that, what's going on. Okay, so don't think too much about decision problems. Again, as I told you, right, decision problems and optimization problems are just off by a log of the optimum value, right? So even if you throw in a log of the optimum value, the runtime will not change too much. Polytime will remain polytime only.
But like that depends on the optimum value, not the
Yes,
size.
can the optimum value actually be exponential? More than exponential? If the optimum value is more than the exponential, right?
But like currently the problems we saw, they are assuming that your optimum depends on the, I mean, optimum obviously has to depend on size of input,
Yeah.
but assuming the optimum value is within O of size of input.
No, doesn't matter. It can be O of exponential also. Okay, but then the log of exponential is n. It's still polynomial, right?
So super exponential, e to the power n.
Can it be?
I don't see a reason it can't be.
Okay, if it is, then how much time will it take you to write that thing? The optimum value? If you have to write a number that is bigger than e to the power n, right? As a binary, the number of steps that you have to do is log of that, which is itself exponential.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in other words, what I'm saying is that this is the following. Okay, if an optimal, oh sorry, I'm not with the if. I'm saying that an optimization problem has a polytime algorithm if and only if the corresponding decision problem has a polytime. Okay. So in that respect, however I define this thing, this informal definition of P, I mean, it doesn't matter whether I'm talking about decision problem or the optimization problem. But I mean, to formally define it, this is the informal definition. To formally define it, I have to define what is the problem is, right? And how do I define what the problem is other than this set? So that is why we stick to decision problems. Okay, I'm not told it anything, I just told it as a fact or something like that, or maybe I'm writing it as an observation. If you can think of it, fine. If not, just assume this statement. Okay, so we have the optimization problem and the corresponding decision problem. The idea is that if you have a polynomial time algorithm for one, you have the polynomial time algorithm for the other. See, those two polynomials might be different, okay? And we might want to distinguish between those two polynomials. But as a polynomial, they are polynomials. So both of them are polynomial. So if all that we want is some polynomial time algorithm, then we are in a good shape.
Is there a name for this theorem? Because like I don't really see it. It depends on the size of the optimum value.
It depends on the size of the optimum value. And what I'm saying is that the optimum value cannot be more. So if the optimum value of an algorithm is more than 2 to the power n, 2 to the power input size, okay, then to write the optimum value will take more than polynomial time.
Okay, so you're saying that it won't be a P problem at all?
Yes. See, if an optimization problem is a problem if it has a polynomial time algorithm, that means in polynomial time the optimum value is written up, right? That means the number of bits in the optimization output is just polynomial, right?
Yes.
And that means log of that quantity, log of the actual value is polynomial. Okay. So you can get this statement there in many places. We can discuss it about it. But for now, you don't have to think of it. Just think of the fact that we are just living with decision problems. The reason we are talking about decision problems is because of formal definition of this. Okay? And this is the informal definition. Of course, the informal definition, you can talk both decision problems and optimization problems. But this is the crucial definition there, okay? That P is the set of all decision problems that has a polytime algorithm. Okay. Now, is this fine? Is this clear? Any questions, any doubts? I will be happy to talk about it more. Okay. So if not, let me go for a slightly more complicated stuff again now. Okay. Look at the vertex cover problem. What is the vertex cover problem? So you have been given a graph G and asked, and the question is that does G have a vertex cover of size more than the n over 100? Okay. Or even for that matter, n over 100, I can write it in terms of k, n over k. Now, what is the best algorithm that is there? What do you think is a good algorithm for this problem? So you have seen vertex cover, right? What is the vertex cover? Do I have to repeat vertex cover? Hello.
No, sir.
Are you familiar with vertex cover?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So can you give me an algorithm for finding a vertex cover? Just think of on top of your head. Don't try to be cute or efficient or anything. Give me any algorithm that you have. I've been giving you a graph G, and I'm asking, does it have a vertex cover a size greater than or equal to k? How will you do it?
Sir, we have to mention minimum vertex cover, right?
Sorry, vertex cover is maximum. Just 1 second, 1 second. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. So vertex cover of size. Vertex cover is the. Sorry, I made a very big mistake from all throughout. Okay. So vertex cover of size being less than. It's a minimization problem all throughout. So, yeah. Yeah, so you have to make changes accordingly previously. Vertex cover was the minimization problem. So if you want to fix the previous one, you should not look at vertex cover, but look at maybe. Yeah, all of them are minimized. So maybe think of it as click or something. Okay, which is the maximization problem. Okay. So yeah, I thought about maximization problem, but somehow for test cover is not a maximization problem. Think of it as K. Right. Yeah. So now tell me this one. Given a graph G, does G have a vertex cover size at most K? What do you think?
If k is greater than n, then yes.
Yes, of course, great. Good start. K is greater than or equal to n, it is good start. But what about something else? If K is 2, then what does it mean? How can you come up with an algorithm?
Sir, any algorithm, right?
Any algorithm. I'm not even asking you the efficient one. Any algorithm.
Just look all subsets of size at most k.
Excellent. So all you do is that go over, go over all subsets of size less than or equal to k. How many of them there? It is n less than k. Right? So it's kind of like order n to the power k. Okay? So this many subsets are there. Take a subset and check whether it's the vertex order size this one or not. Right? Are you guys all? Did you guys follow this argument?
Yes, sir.
Good. So note that this is a good algorithm, but this is not exponential. That's not polynomial. Okay. Because k need not be constant, right? K is a parameter. So k can be n over 100, right? K can be log n. So n to the power log n is not polynomial in n, right? Or fine. So the question is that is there a polytime algorithm? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is there a polytime algorithm? Now, this question has been being asked, so this question or similar questions of how to find a polytime algorithm for clique, how to find a polytime for vertex cover, how to find a polytime algorithm for factorization, how to find a polytime algorithm for knapsack. All of these questions has been doing the rounds for the last 100 years. Okay, this everything that I told you so far. Okay, all of this concept of writing things in this format, formalizing what is a problem, formalizing a decision problem, and all of them was done way back in the 1895 by Hilbert. Okay, have you heard of Hilbert?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And basically, she kind of formalized it and then went on and on and on, and then a major breakthrough came. This all of it started in this area called computability theory. And it was, I don't want to go into computability theory. At some point of time, you might be getting a course on this subject. Maybe if you go into automata theory and all this kind of stuff. And have you heard of his name, Gödel?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So Gödel basically made the first major progress in this direction. Okay. And he had massive results, big things and all. But he was not worried about time complexity. He was worried about more about what can be computed and what cannot be computed. But this concept of time, number of steps required, that has been hanging around since then. Okay. And it kept on going and all, and there was a lot of people who tried to come up with various nice results. Like there was this, there is Turing, who, and Church. Have you heard of these two guys' names? I hope you have heard of the name Turing.
Yes.
So he basically developed the concept of what is time complex. He gave the concept of time, space, and also all of those kind of complexity measures he defined. Okay, so formally defining what is the number of time, what is the number of space and all. And this was basically before the Second World War, so 1930s time, or maybe 1940s. There was a lot of other names. I'm forgetting all these names. The Klein is there, and all of these big names were there. But people kept on working, and they could not solve this question. They could not solve this polynomial time algorithm. Okay? Fine. But then they observed there's a guy called Cook and Levin. They observed something very interesting in 1970s. It's not something that they observed as such. Some of it was kind of obvious. But look at this problem. Okay? Look at the problem of the vertex cover. So what do we have? We have a exponential time algorithm, shear time algorithm. Very good. This is one observation that we knew. We don't have a polynomial time algorithm. So this is polytime algorithm. So this is like, you can think of that we have been unsuccessful. We cannot prove that we cannot have one, but we have been unsuccessful in doing it. But the most important thing they observed is that what happens if somebody magically comes up and gives us a solution? So like this is the problem that we are asking, right? Like, does an algorithm, does a graph have a vertex cover size at most k? Okay? Say I am a teacher and you have given me this problem. Or say I am not a teacher, so if you ask me different, okay? Maybe just put it in the other. So I am a teacher, I ask you that, okay, here is a graph. Do you think this graph has a vertex cover of size less than or equal to k? Right? I am an idiot. I don't know how to solve the problem. But you are a magician. You tell me that you can write a proof. You can give me a proof of it. Right? So here is a graph, say. This is a graph. Okay? A very complicated graph, just think of it something like that. Does it have a vertex cover of size? Does it have a vertex cover of size less than or equal to 2? Less than or equal to 3. I don't know how to solve it. I'm completely useless. But you come up and say that, oh, see, here is the solution. Maybe if you can give me this and this, right? Also, maybe then this gives you a vertex cover and of size 2. Now I could not find the solution myself. But once you give me a solution, I am smart enough to understand that this is the correct solution. Right? So you have been given a solution, and all I need to do is what? Oh, okay, you have given me this vertex cover. Is this a vertex cover? I have to verify it. Oh yeah, it's a vertex cover because all the other, I have to go over all the possible vertices and I check whether they are adjacent to these vertices or not. These vertex cover vertices or not. Very good, that's one thing. So you have given me a vertex cover, and total number of vertex cover is 2. So excellent. So you have answered this question. So what I'm saying is that checking or verifying if a solution is correct can be done in polytime. This is a very crucial observation. Yes, I cannot find the solution in polytime, right? But if somebody gives me a solution, then I can verify the correctness in polytime. This is a typical teacher-student problem case. Okay, like in the end-sem exam, I can give you very hard problems which I myself don't know how to solve. But if you give me a solution written up in a clear, beautiful format, I can verify whether your solution is correct or not. Because all I need to do is that I have to verify from the previous statements. Does the third statement follow from the first two statements, and so on, right? It is also told there is a lot of analogies that are there given here. Like it is called the sometimes it's called the Akbar-Birbal thing. So Akbar has a problem, which is he has to solve some problem, major problem that happens in his kingdom. He doesn't know how to find a solution. So he asks Birbal, can you give me a solution? Now, Birbal is a smart person, but he's also a chipster. He kind of tries to trick Akbar. So Birbal can come up and say, oh, here is a solution. Why don't you do that? But Akbar is not a fool. So he cannot find a solution himself. But once Birbal gives the solution, he can verify whether the solution is the correct solution or is Birbal completely bullshitting and giving a wrong solution. That he can do. Okay. Note that this is a very crucial distinction. Okay. Is this clear? Kind of. I am not giving you completely formal definition over here. But if somebody gives let me, if you want, I can give you this definition. Okay. So this is called the subject called NP. Okay. NP is the set of all problems for which the solution can be verified in polynomial time. Okay. Now this NP is not saying that it is not polynomial. It can be polynomial also, but this is called non-deterministic polynomial time. Now I will not explain why the name come up and all. Okay, that you have to look into a little bit more of logic and all. But this is basically the informal definition of NP. Okay, this is the informal definition. Now, I don't want to go into this formal definition, maybe that will completely confuse you guys. But if you want, I can give it at some point of time, or you can find it in the book. Okay, so note that, so P, the class of all problems for which I can myself solve a problem. So you give me a problem, I can solve it completely in polynomial time. Then I can solve it. So then why am I even caring about asking you about a solution and all? So I can of course verify the correctness of the solution also, right? Because I can solve it. So P is a subset of NP. But what is an NP? NP is all the problems for which I might not have a polynomial time algorithm. But if somebody comes up and tells me the solution, or there is a way of telling me the solution in which I will be able to verify the correctness of it. Okay, so do you guys want a formal very definition of this, or should I leave it with the informal definition? Okay, let me leave it out the informal definition for now. Okay, if you got in the next class, I can define it. Okay, so now where are we? Let's see. Say something like matching. We know how to solve matching exactly, meaning in polynomial time. Network flow, MST, minimum spanning tree, right? All of them are in P. Okay, so therefore they are meant. But things like vertex cover, clique, oh, but here LP will also come, linear programming. Okay, vertex cover, clique, ILP, all of them goes into NP. So they are the problems for which I don't know how to solve it. But if you give me a solution, I can verify the correctness. Okay, like say ILP. Yeah, I don't know how to find out the optimum solution. But if somebody gives me a solution, right? Also, I don't. So it's a decision problem. Like my question is that is there an optimal solution, or is there a solution? The maximization problem. Is there a solution whose value is more than some particular threshold? I don't know how to solve it. But if you give me the actual solution to it, meaning, oh, put this variable in as 1, this variable as 0, and so on and so forth, then verify all the constants are satisfied, verify all the metrics is satisfied, and find out what is the actual value of C transpose X, the optimum, the optimization thing, right? The thing, the factor that you're optimizing. And if that value comes up to be more than threshold, I am done. I'm convinced. I don't know how you came up with the solution, but you came up with the solution, and I verified that that is correct. That I can do. Okay. So this is P. P is a set of all problems that can be solved in polynomial time. NP is the set of problems that can be verified in polynomial times. And P is subset of NP. Wow. So that means I have this is a set of P things, and this is a set of NP things. Okay? And I don't want to go too far today, but let me just say how we started this whole process. Now, there are all these points over here. There are all problems that are in NP, and some of them are in P, and so on. And here there was an ILP, a spatial problem. What you guys did in the problem set was that you reduced all these problems, or some of these problems rather, into ILP. Now, first of all, note one thing, that one of the big problems here is that we know that P is NP. This is something we know. This is very easy to see. But the more open question, this is the big open question. This is called the Clay Math Institute, one of the 6 leftover open problems. If you solve it, you get some $1 million and a fame of unbelievable proportion. Is P equals to NP? So that means, can you solve all the problems in NP? A problem for which you can verify in polynomial time. Can you also solve it in polynomial time? We don't know. This is a big open question. I have to kind of highlight this one very carefully and properly. This is a massive open problem. Okay, this is the open problem that possibly is important across the board of mathematics, computer science, economics, everywhere you think of. Okay, everything starting from your credit card to your cell phone to everything is the important. The reason they work and the reason they are not stolen is because of this. The reason you have big companies trying to find out good algorithms is because of this. Because we still don't have this problem. We don't know the answer to this. Okay. But think of it. You kind of proved for all these problems, you kind of told that, okay, if you ask me to solve vertex cover, I can reduce this vertex cover, formulate it as an ILP question. Okay? And what does it mean? It means that if the ILP problem has a polynomial time algorithm, vertex cover has a polynomial time algorithm, right? Because you proved this point, right? You proved this thing. So all I need to prove that ILP. So that means, what does it imply? That if ILP is in P, then vertex cover is also in P. Okay. So you can see that ILP now starts slowly becoming a central problem in this world. And in fact, there is a famous theorem. Now, this theorem, I realize that the proof of it is not given even in the Kleinberg-Cardo's book. They also state it. And the reason is that to give the formal proof of it, I have to go to what is called Turing machines and the model of some a bit more formal definition that I have to do. But I don't, but this thing, think of it as a black box, something that you will learn later on. It's called the Cook-Levin theorem. And this says that for all problem Q inside the P, sorry, not in P, inside NP. So all problems in NP, Q is less than or equal to IL. Say this theorem exists. Okay? What does it mean? It means that if ILP is in P, somehow somebody magically solves ILP in P, then
P equal to NP.
P equals to NP. Right? And opposite is true. If P equals to NP, then of course ILP is in P, ILP is in NP. So this is the beauty of a thing that computer scientists came up with. And it's like among this class of problems, there is something which is the hardest problem. So all I need to do is that instead of proving these two sets to be equal, all I have to do is that, oh, I have to prove that ILP is in P. That's it, one question. That's all that I need to work on. I don't have to go and solve one problem after problem after problem. Okay, so this kind of questions is called the, okay, it's called an NP complete problem. Okay, now what is the NP complete problem? ILP is the NP complete problem. This is not the definition. An NP complete problem. So we can say that Q, so not Q, maybe let's say a problem R is NP complete if for all Q in NP, Q reduces to R. Okay. Of course, ILP is one of them. But note this one interesting thing. Now, if you can reduce ILP to some problems, somehow I have modeled ILP and I have modeled it in some other format. Okay. There is something called a SAT. SAT is a satisfiability. It's something very standard problem in logic and all. I don't want to define it. If I can prove this statement, what does it mean? Using this theorem and this obvious thing, what do I mean? This implies that SAT is also NP complete. Okay. So what it means is that because if Q is less than ILP, Q is less than SAT, ILP is less than SAT, so Q is must be less than SAT.
What is that? Can you repeat?
What is that? Forget that. That's the field via vertex cover. Okay. And this is true, by the way. I can ask you to prove it also. Okay? No, say claim. ILP is in VC, meaning if I give you an ILP problem, you can actually, instead of solving the ILP problem, you can formulate it as a vortex cover problem. Okay, so that means ILP, so what we have, therefore, VC is less than ILP is less than VC. So that means VC and ILP are both equally hard. And both of them are NP complete. So there are a number of NP complete problems. Okay, so we have a P, the picture looks like this. We have the NP, and we have a small group of set here, it's NP complete, and ILP over here, vortex cover is over here, even click is over here. And the idea is that if NP complete intersection P is not empty, then P equals to P. So this is the picture that we have now. Okay, we have a set of polynomial time problems. We have the NP problems, things for which I can verify, but we still don't have necessarily polynomial time algorithm. And we have a class of problems that is the hardest class of problems in NP. Okay. And this is the kind of picture that we have. So this is kind of very important. Okay. So in some sense, you can think of it that I have the, yeah. So, yeah. If I want to say more on it, then I have to go into a bit more the area called complexity theory. So, which I don't think I will go into it now. But this is the picture that you should kind of always keep in mind. Okay, you have a set of problems that is polynomial time. There's a set of problems that are in NP complete, and then there's a set of problems. Now, if I give you a new problem, say I somehow come up with a new problem, okay, and I tell you, is this problem in polynomial time? What is the first thing that you should do? So you join a company and ask you, come up and give me a very efficient algorithm for this problem. So I have given you a problem R, and I said, give me your boss is saying, give me an efficient algorithm for R. One thing, of course, is that you can try to solve it. If you can solve it, very good. But maybe you are unable to solve it, and your boss is shouting at you. And how can you not solve it? You are such an intelligent person, go and solve it. A standard thing to do is that if you can prove that the vortex cover or something like ILP or click or any of these problems, NP complete, if you can prove that they are easier than R, meaning you can reduce one problem to R, reduce one of the problems to R, or model one of the problem in R, just like you did the opposite direction. You kind of model vortex cover into ILP, you model spanning tree into ILP and so on. Similarly, if you can do something like this, then what do we know? Then we get that R is NP complete. And then you can tell your boss that, see, here is it. I mean, you are asking me to come up with an efficient algorithm for an NP complete problem, which people have not been able to solve, ever. And possibly not even true. I mean, that's how we want to look at it. But this is almost not feasible, let's say. Because if it is becomes NP complete and it can come up with a polynomial time algorithm, then lot of things will break loose. Okay. So what I will do is that I will, next class, I will kind of say to you, okay, I will ask you these questions. Okay, first question is, what if P equals 20? Okay. This is an unknown question, right? But if P equals 20, what horrendous things can happen? First of all. Second thing is that, say if R is NP complete. Your boss wants you to solve that R efficiently, right? And it is NP complete. Say, for example, vertex cover. So, of course, we don't expect a polytime algorithm. Fine, that is okay, no problem. But should we just keep our hands, just give up and just sit there? Or can we do something? Can we do something? We do something. Maybe I cannot solve it in the worst case. Maybe I cannot come up with the perfect answer. Maybe I cannot give always the correct answer. But something. Yeah, okay, I cannot answer your question whether vertex cover has the size of vertex cover size n over 100. But can I say something close by? Maybe I'm not n over 100, but can I say something like it is? I can somehow output something close to that. Okay, what can we do? So this is the next thing that will come up. So in the next class, I will be talking a bit around this thing. Okay, and more formally, I will kind of define this reductions. Something that you might have heard me saying just now. That when I say that R is less than or equal to ILP, you have seen what this means, right? Or ILP is less than or equal to vertex cover. These are called reductions. What are reductions? Okay. So by the way, I hope that you if you are interested in this kind of areas, this problem area and all, this is a beautiful one, and this is not something anywhere close to computer science. It's like mathematics in its best form. Okay, so this is a very, very exciting area of work that is very, very active, very nice, and it comes everywhere and all. If you have heard of things like, have you heard of, I don't know whether, have you heard of this concept of SAT solver? Or approximation algorithms? Or verification? Or even things like learning and all of them are packed into here. To understand that, you have to basically look at these things. So I would say that, so I will stop here now. I've overshoot by a lot. It's okay. So what I will ask you guys is that go over this lecture this kind of notes that I have. Okay. If you have any questions, ask me. Okay. And go over the section 8 in that Kleinberg Turtles book. Okay. Go over the section 8. It is I have kind of covered most of it. Okay. You might see some of the definitions being given there formally. Okay. And you can see some of the examples and all, various things. And yeah, this is something. Yeah. So this is how we will be doing in the next class. Okay, so I can stop here now. I know that it this is we are way off. But in case you guys have questions, I will be happy to take some questions now, or of course you can ask questions later.
Sir, which section do we have to read?
8, section 8. So that section is on. Where is it gone? Yeah. So after network flow, you have this one, NP and computational intractability. Okay, this is the section that you should, chapter, the first section. Yeah, so this is the reductions that they talk about, basically kind of thing that you have done in your, using your Vortex Cover 2 ILP. Okay, so I have taken ILP as the central NP complete problem. One can take some other things as a central problem, in NP complete problem. Okay. Yeah. So they have this satisfiability problem. So this is the another very classic NP complete problem. But as I told you, all of them are same, because if one of them is NP complete, the other one can also be NP complete, right? So, okay. Yeah, so you kind of go over section 8, chapter 8. Yeah, chapter 8 is not that complicated, it is not very technical, but it is a formally defining structures, trying to see the whole story about where things are, what are the problems. These are like very, this is the kind of algorithms where, or part of algorithms where coming up with the correct algorithm is not the more interesting part, but the overall concept is the more challenging thing. Okay. So if you don't have any questions else, or I can stop now. Okay, so let's stop now, and we will talk on Thursday.